Welcome to CEO Live. In this episode, we will discuss and explore what would have happened had Kenya not chosen to go the broad-based government way. Flashback to July 2024. The army has been deployed to several cities and the Gen Z have been contained in their quarters. The country is tense, parliament is totally compromised, and Ruto has potentially three options. The first being to maintain the status quo, not listen to Gen Z, and go even further to declare state of emergency and formalize the deployment of the armed forces by an act of parliament. Second is the option of seeking help from Raila-Ruto to help him stabilize the country by bringing on board his vast experience in such matters, and equally important, donate part of his constituency to support him or at least help calm things down. Lastly, and this presents the worst option at his disposal, is to succumb to Gen Z demands, recall the deployed army to the barracks, dissolve parliament and the presidency, which is what the Gen Zs want, and call for fresh elections with a clear impasse in view. There is no independent electoral commission, IEBC, to conduct the elections, were they to be called. The first option of declaring a state of emergency and suspending the constitution would have led us straight into anarchy, probably ending up with a new Rwanda-like constitution several years later, maybe sometime in 2035. Our current constitution may only have been rebirthed at the death of such a dictator or anarchist, whichever could have occurred. We all appreciate that President Ruto did not choose this path. The second option, where he chose to work with Raila, which is the unfolding script. So there is actually no reason to hypothesize about it because we are currently living the consequences of this choice. A broad-based government which is likely to be broadened further with additional ODM members. This is the option under debate, with hate for Raila openly manifest in certain quarters. I wish to debunk this hate for some and fear of Raila for others. Amid the Raila name-calling, the country is relatively peaceful, the Kenya shilling is fairly stable to the dollar, pump prices are not so volatile, abductions have ceased, people can go about their businesses unhindered, albeit in a difficult economic environment. The controversial housing levy may be revised, food prices are not so bad for farmers and consumers alike. Pay as you earn may be lowered, among other tax relief measures, and the ID fee has been totally removed. Middle-class elitists and the Gen Z continue to oppose and castigate Raila for his pact with Ruto, yet his influence in the broad-based government may have contributed to these positives. The Shah and the Chief are certainly not working well or transparently as they should, but the jury is still out there on whether it is any better than the NHIF, which owed billions to medical institutions. The shady Adani deals were cancelled after public uproar. The controversial former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua dramatically impeached, and the discredited 13th Parliament has assumed a semblance of performance for its overloaded and underwhelming roles amid the shifting political equation. The last option, where the president would have dissolved parliament and called for elections, appears to be the most favored by the Gen Z, Raila's die-hard critics, and those who don't prefer the first two. Under this option, the president could have left the constitution intact to help the country navigate its future. Suspending the constitution and declaring a state of emergency would have led to a power vacuum and a national catastrophe. Such a scenario would have meant mass protests in the streets, loss of lives, looting, destruction of property, and anarchy. With no clear leadership in place, the situation could have quickly degenerated into a totally justified military takeover to stop the chaos. I simply leave it to the imagination as to where we would be had things followed this route. Historically, few military-run governments have been successful. Burkina Faso, the trending example, may just be one of the few successful ones in current times. But for how long will it hold? And for how long will it be run without civilian participation? Will the military government remain in place forever? How will they transition back to democratic governance? What would happen if anything were to unfortunately happen to Captain Ibrahim Traore? What's his succession plan? Is his governance model sustainable? Is it as successful as depicted by the media? Then there are our traditional Western allies, the UK and the United States, who have major geopolitical and economic interests in Kenya. Would they have left us alone to follow this path and abandon us to the wolves? Without the presidency and parliament, could the speaker, as stipulated in the constitution, have assumed state leadership for 90 days and managed to organize fresh elections with the restless Gen Z breathing on his neck? Inebriated after the achievement of toppling both the presidency and parliament, the Gen Z would have probably continued celebrating in the streets countrywide for the better part of the 3 months. Most government institutions and services would have been paralyzed by public disorder as clashes with security forces prevailed. Holding elections in 3 months in such a politically charged environment is in itself just too optimistic and probably impracticable. The acting president would have had to negotiate for more time with the Gen Zs. Whether they would have accepted this arrangement or obeyed for his blood is a matter of conjecture. By the time the elections would have been called, some of the practically leaderless Gen Zs would have been infiltrated and pocketed by government and intelligence services, becoming even more disorganized. The remaining Gen Z leaders would have either been eliminated or cowed. They had had their day on 24th June 2024 and, in my honest opinion, wasted it. Or could it be that they were played out of it? By this time, the millennials and the baby boomers like you and me would have been already ordered by Gen Zs to step aside. The hate for Raila would not have been helpful in any case, considering that he had previously also been ordered to keep off Gen Z affairs. The acting president would have likely put in place a Gen Z-driven IBC after negotiating extra-constitutionally for more time to organize a Gen Z-backed electoral commission. Where would Kenya be now with all the Raila hate had the option he settled for not have been adopted? Needless to say, all current and previous politicians would have been asked to step aside, stay out completely, and not interfere as Gen Z embarked on the heavy task of rebuilding the nation afresh. It would have been a totally new political class. Our oligarchs from exile in the UK and neighboring countries wouldn't have taken this defeat lying down and would have closed ranks pretty fast, cast their differences aside in record speed, reorganized themselves into a formidable force to fight back the nascent Gen Z government. That's to say, if we ever reached there. These oligarchs hold the money and the power as we speak, or hallucinate over the endgame of a probable Gen Z victory. I fully support resetting the clock, but this should and must happen through a transparent democratic process. If Baba and Ruto were to be the fatalities of such a process come 2027, so be it. But at the very least, let us all accept that their coming together saved us from the two most unattractive options we had at that time. For that, we should all be indebted to both of them for their foresight and wisdom in agreeing to set aside their political differences for the sake of peace and stability of the nation when the country so desperately needed it. Long live Kenya. Thank you for listening to me today, and I look forward to receiving feedback on thoughts provided in this episode. Don't forget to continue tuning to episodes on CEO Live on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.